farmers in Niger State. And they actually were protesting against the rising cost of food and the severe hunger in the country under the present federal government. Well, barely days after that particular, and from what we hear, or what we heard, they disrupted commercial activity there, causing heavy traffic gridlock as well. So protests. And I'm asking, how do protests help in tackling economic hardship? In this situation that we have found ourselves in, protesting, how does that help? Well, joining me for this conversation is Marcus Ijioma. He's a public affairs analyst. Welcome aboard, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Port Harcourt. Good afternoon, Nigeria.
All right. So you can join the conversation. Head on to Facebook now, and I would like to read from you. We're live on Facebook at Nigeria Info 93PH and also on X at Nigeria Info PH. Oh, and before I even start, it's raining in this part of Port Harcourt because in recent days I've realized that it might be raining somewhere in Port Harcourt and elsewhere the sun is shining. So here in Rumasi, rain is falling. In case you're not seeing the rain wherever you are, sorry. Okay, so let's start off first of all with the factors that have led to, or should I say that are contributing to the economic hardship in Nigeria today. We look at some of them, at least some of those things.
Yeah, for me there are just three basic factors.
Okay.
The first and the most important one for me is insecurity.
All right.
The second one is government policies, bad government policies, both federal and state, as it were. And of course, the third one is bad decision making on the part of the citizenry.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll start with insecurity then. How is it contributing? Of course, we know there are so many stories around from Abuja and elsewhere about the level of insecurity in the country and people in places where we expect that farmers should be doing their jobs and all of that.
Okay, so you've taken that off me already, but I will still want to expatiate on that. If you notice, the most fertile region in Nigeria is the Middle Belt. Benue, Plateau, Kaduna, Niger, some Kogi State, and Taraba. And those states are the food producing states in Nigeria, where you have multiplicity of food production. In other words, the kind of land that can produce different kind of crops. In other areas, they are just known for one or two crops because of their soil type. But in that Middle Belt, one state can be rich in many food produce. And these are the areas where, from time immemorial, the battle over grazing routes, which led to the farmer headers clashes, before farmer header clashes became a political issue. You know, it was first a simple disagreement. You know, if you look at the grazing routes from the 70s and the 60s carved out by the federal government, you realize the cattle headers are supposed to go on a particular route, especially towards rivers, where you have streams and rivers. The idea is that it's cheaper to be nomadic than to have ranches. Because if you have 300 cows, you need to ranch. How much land do you need?
Yeah.
The average cow drinks about 50 liters. How much water per day? How much water would you need if you have 300 cows? So just imagine the size of the ball if you want to think about it. And if you know anything about rotational farming, it is not in the field that they graze today that they're supposed to graze tomorrow. Yeah. So you're supposed to go somewhere else to graze, so that by the time you're coming back 2-3 days time, the other grass would have recovered. Remember Abraham and Lot? It was their herdsmen that caused their problem. It was what caused the separation. That's the first time you had the mention of herdsmen in the Bible. Lot's herdsmen had issues with Abraham's herdsmen over grazing spots. Yeah. So everybody's always looking for lush green areas. So when Lot was asked to pick somewhere to go to, when Abraham had to send him out of his house, Lot picked the greenest part. He looked at where it was green. So this problem has historical background. So coming to Nigeria, we have cultural differences. So while you are rich in cattle herding, I am rich in yams, cassava, rice, vegetables, and the likes. All of us need this river bank.
Yeah.
So why the herders want to drink cheap water? In the process, they destroy crops. Or the farmers who farmed around the riverbanks to have access to cheap irrigation. Because it's now easy to tap into the rivers and irrigate your vegetable farms, whatever farm, so that you can have all year round farming, not the seasonal one that is waiting for rainfall. Long and short of the story is that this clashes started from there. But most of our herders are foreigners, not properly documented. As much as we have ECOWAS treaties and all of those treaties that allow people move across West Africa and East Africa, all of those things, we didn't document them. So when they come to Nigeria and maybe the farmers attack them or they attack the farmers, these issues are left to God, never resolved. Number two, our farms are not registered. Both those farming in crops and those farming in cattle do not register. Most of them are not registered with CAC or any form of local government registration. So cattle cannot be traced. In other climes, every cattle has a serial number hung on their neck. So if a cow comes into my farm, I can tell which farm these cows came from. But all the cows on the streets of Port Harcourt, can you really tell who owns them?
These days, I see this. They have a number with, they use paints or something.
Those ones, the paints are for selling purpose.
Okay.
So if me and you hire a trailer to transport cows, I have to mark my own so that when we are offloading, you don't mistakenly carry my own. Okay. So when I dash you the cow and you put it in somebody else's head, that's the number you're seeing. That number has nothing to do with Ministry of Health or Obiakpo or anything. If you look at the numbers, they are not serial, they are not the same. So they come from different people, different owners sold them. So long and short of it is that because these are not documented, making case becomes difficult. So if you eat up my crop, I don't have insurance for my farm. So you are eating up my whole season. So I strike the cattle strike back. And because they are foreigners, they travel back to their places and call for militias to take revenge. That was how it all started. And then farmers became displaced. The moment farmers became displaced, they are all in our cities driving keke, they are driving Okada, they are doing security, they are doing house help. These are the same people from the Middle Belt and in the core north who used to farm a portion of potato here, a portion of groundnuts here, a portion of rice here, that collectively they bring it to the weekly market, and the merchants go to the weekly market and push them to the major areas, the major cities where you and I buy from oil mill and then we feed ourselves. So the moment they were displaced, the whole of that season. So what we are seeing now are results of seasonal displacement over the years. So what has been stored up is what we are eating, and fewer people are farming now because more people are being displaced. So that is how insecurity affected that, because our government was not able to protect neither the herders nor the farmer. So everybody was left to protect each other. So the farmers killed the herders killed the farmers, and the problem continues. Meat was going up, prices was also going up, and then food prices was also going up.
And now we're here.
Yes. So the insecurity, our farms are not mechanized. Most of our farms are not mechanized. We rely a lot on artisan farmers. So if the villages are not saved, who is going to farm? You can't even go to farm. You're going to be raped. You're going to be kidnapped. You're going to be killed. And there's nothing. If you're going to be killed and you are sure that your killer will be found, there's a confidence with which you die. But when you realize that even if 100 people die, Nigeria is such a funny country where you hear in the news 30 people killed. We don't have their names. Documentation. There's no honor in death. 25 people killed. Bandit killed 5. Who are those 5? How come their names were never mentioned? No database. So people are just killed in numbers, and then we just roll out the figures and we move on to the next news. So it's always a challenge. So everybody has run out of the villages. The rest are in IDP camps all over the place, and nobody farms in IDP camp. They are, in fact, they are waiting to be given to be fed. But these are people that produce 2 tons, 5 tons, 50 kg rice, this and that, bits by bits, and then they feed the rest of us who are broadcasters, media analysts, and all those people who will not have the time to go farm, but we pay them to farm for us. Before now, you could put somebody in the village to farm cassava for you, and when it's time to harvest, you just measure your plot and sell it without touching the knife to peel it. You could make money. You can farm sitting in the studio because you went to the village, pay some people to do the farming and clearing and everything for you. You are contributing because you are not going to eat everything. You have some leftovers after you have taken enough for your family. There's some leftover that when they are having a Che market, some Biama market, you bring those out, the ones you cannot eat, for those who did not farm to come and buy. So you exchange their money for other things that you need. So insecurity made it impossible for farmers to farm. So the fewer farmers we have, naturally, food scarcity. Forget that story about how many routes discovered about money, food being smuggled. I heard the Niger State governor, a very disappointing house, I must say, when the protests happened in Niger State, that he instructed that no food supply in bulk should leave Niger State. How dare you? Does Niger State eat everything they produce? What if Rivers State government decide that no tanker should load from Port? What will happen to Niger State?
Okay, because I actually thank you for this foundation you've laid now, because we're actually looking at how protesting is a solution, a way
it is
to
a
help.
Huge solution, if I must answer.
Okay, so I'm going to come back to that. We'll look at how historically protesting has actually helped to solve economic problems. All right, but we'll go to commercial break, and when we come back, we're still continuing this conversation. Remember the question I'm asking you: how do protests help in tackling economic hardships? We'll be right back after this break. Don't go anywhere. on the clock, and it's still hard facts, and we're discussing protests over economic hardship. Marcus Ijioma is still in the studio, and remember, I'm asking you to tell us how you think that protests help in tackling economic hardships. Now, before we went on that break, Mr. Ijioma took out time to lay a foundation on how we got to the level of insecurity that brought us to this point where farmers can no longer go to their farms, and Nigeria is now said to be importing a lot of food, and everything is now high. I mean, although we didn't delve into
the import
bad government policies, yes. Right? Yeah. So, but then I feel like, okay, if all of these had happened, then we started making policies to trying to, okay, since we couldn't fix this, let's look for a way to make this work, and then it's still not working. The dollar is, I don't know what's up with that guy. He's running, and we're pursuing, and it's as if we're not coming anywhere close.
Do you really want to hear the truth about the dollar?
Please, I want to hear.
It's all speculations. It's market manipulation. Nothing really happened. Nigerians have dollars in their houses. And I'm not joking. Nigerians have dollars in banks. There is no Nigerian, I say it authoritatively, that you will give ₦1 million now that will not rush to presidential to buy dollars. I'm not joking. So it's simple economics, demand and supply. There's high demand for dollar. If I bribe you, Constance, with 1 billion, we put that in your house. But 1 billion converted to a dollar can just be in a small brown envelope. It's more convenient to carry. It's more convenient to store. So the pressure on Naira, yes, the government has a large chunk of blame, because I don't know how we keep falling for the IMF and World Bank economists and the Harvard and Yale and all those people who do not have practical solution to African problems. They go out there, study all kinds of economic theories, and then they experiment on Africa. And our government, for fear of being overthrown, for fear of being attacked by the Western imperialists, has adopt these policies and experiment with the lives of their citizens. It's not just peculiar to Nigeria alone. Most African countries have the same fate of listening to Western ideals and ideologies. So, having said all of that, you now come to Nigeria where corruption is endemic, where people steal billions from political offices and convert to dollars.
Still keeping their homes.
In their bank accounts. Yeah. A lot of neighboring African countries are richer because of Nigerian politicians. They move money out in cash, lodge them in neighboring African countries, and then onward transmission or offshore accounts to Europe and elsewhere in the world. That is what is placing stress on the dollar, not because of genuine manufacturers who are importing nothing. Yes, we import a lot of things, including toothpick, but those are not our issues. Everybody imports. What you just need to do with your economy is to balance trade. Ensure that what you're importing is not more than what you're exporting. Your export must always, at every point, to have a healthy economy, must be more than your import.
But so then how do we export if we don't have things that we manufacture?
We can export a lot of things. I don't know what year you were born, but there was a time in Nigeria we were exporting education. Education is a product. We have well over 200 universities in Nigeria. Why are Ghanaians not schooling here? Does it take rocket science to make Uniport standard enough for people from Africa, neighboring African countries, to come into Nigeria to pay school fees in dollars or in naira? It doesn't do anything to make education exportable. We have tourism. When last did you hear about Obudukatu Ranch? When last did any of your friends planning a wedding telling you they are planning a honeymoon in Obudu or Yankari Game Reserve in Bauchi? You wouldn't even think about going to Bauchi because you'll be kidnapped. That's tourism. Have you heard about Membila Plateau? Please Google it. Temperature at its best, the best location in Nigeria. But what is stopping us? Yes, who is going to go to Mambila Plateau to have a holiday? Nobody's going to go there. Do you know how much people pay? In fact, I think some religious bodies in Nigeria should be paid for tourism, because those are the only places people are visiting from outside the country now. I don't want to mention the name of those churches, but I'm sure you know them. So we are losing revenue in tourism because of insecurity. We are losing revenue in education. And for God's sake, we have exported enough doctors, nurses, all kinds of professionals everywhere in the world. That's export. In fact, those are the only people whose dollar remittances are still helping us in Nigeria.
Oh, wow.
And we have our population, so there's no harm in exporting more. We need more Nigerians out there to keep shipping the dollar back into Nigeria. Go work, then send the money back. So that's one way of getting forex. But you look at crude oil. They lie to us about the figures. I strongly believe me, if it was Kala, he would tell me, do I have facts? Do I have figures? This is hard facts, right? Please, I beg you, if you know anybody in the oil and gas, they will tell you that we underdeclare what we actually sell. So where does the rest go to? We heard about currency swap. We heard about crude swap. We heard all kinds of things. Some of us have been asking. I've never been a proponent of subsidy removal, if you must hear, because I believe that was the only subsidy that went around. Every other subsidy is marred with corruption. It's the first subsidy that everybody could enjoy, maybe from transportation or other forms of petrol consumption. But eventually, those who knew better than the rest of us won the argument, and subsidy was gone with no plan on ground. They hit the ground running, and we have been running since then. We are running at the bus stop, we are running in the market, we are running everywhere because they hit the ground running. And
also running in the form of protests. All right. Now, coming to the protests that have happened in some places, and I'm sure some people are still planning protests. I mean, Labour is planning a 2-day protest and or whatnot. I know you were going to do that, but we're not going to talk about NLC on Labour here now. But the focus is on protests generally, right? As a way of trying to whether get the government's attention or let the government know that this is how we feel about the situation. Yeah. So how does protesting really help to solve the problem? Maybe you don't know me to that point. I used to be a unionist when I was in the university. Oh, interesting. Yes. I was very close to the student union government. Okay. Then at the Benue State University in Makurdi. I was also very close to 3 NANS presidents, Dan Onje, Heman Himbe, and Tony Ngoye, who is now a senator in Anambra State. I've been active part of protest planning and execution. Now, let me use the NANS 3 C's. Consultation, consolidation, and confrontation. Those are 3 C's of NANS. So you consult. In other words, if there's a breach of peace, if there's a breach of any kind, you consult with the stakeholders. Tell them, we're not happy with this thing. What are you going to do about it? If they don't answer you, you consolidate on the consultation that you did before. So you go back. Yes, to have another round of talk. If those 2 fails, then you do confrontation. Confrontation is what you are referring to as protest. So protest is a form of communication, an expression of grievance, expression of dissatisfaction. So telling protest solve problem. The number one problem that protest solve is that it helps you vent. All right. Because if you don't vent, you wake up every morning, there's a particular social media app that when you turn on, it says what's on your mind. So you are forced to type something. Maybe you can just say, praise the Lord, if that's what is on your mind. But if something else is on your mind, you vent. You can do live, you can do all kinds of things just to vent. So ventilation of anger and frustration is a psychological way of healing. So if I'm not satisfied with something, UN Charter and other charters that Nigeria is a signatory to allows for protest. Yeah. So citizens should be allowed as long as they are peaceful. So it is the job of the police and the security agencies to ensure that the protests are peaceful, not to stop the protest. That's where violence comes in. Because oftentimes our security agencies are quick to stop the protest. People want to vent, and then the next thing you are throwing tear gas at them. That is when it becomes violent. Yeah, but then, recently, the warning, I think that was yesterday, from the police wasn't necessarily that they were going to stop the protests. The warning was against violent protests. Now, we've also seen situations in Nigeria where a protest is ongoing, and the next thing is some people from nowhere decide to join and spoil it. Those people, it's not my job. It's not your job to find those people. In this country, we've had budget for CCTV on the streets before. If we want to talk about the challenges of Nigerian police, it's a different show together. Probably 1 hour will not be enough for us to treat it. But the question is, who hijacked? Let me digress a bit. The governor of Rivers State was going to see something at the State Assembly a couple of weeks ago, and police used water cannon on him. Do police have the CCTV footage of the police officers who carried out those acts? That one happened in what we call the 3-arm zone of Rivers State, where you have the judiciary, you have the executive and government house at the back. We are expecting that street should be the most secured street in Port Harcourt, in Rivers State. We don't have CCTV footage. So if protests are going to happen,
do our police vans have CCTV cameras on them? So that if eventually it turns violent, which is likely to turn to, you have what it takes to quell the violence. Protests have always been violent everywhere in the world. Nigeria is not new. In France, in US, in certain climes where they have high technology for crime detection. So you cannot now bottle people up and say, don't protest because it's going to get violent. No way. They should be allowed to vent. You as the police, you as the army, you as DSS, ensure that anybody who turns it into a violent protest, pick that person out, that person, because you have intelligence. What stops policemen from going with plain clothes among the protesters?
You think they don't do that?
So how many did they arrest instead of 20 tear gas? Why don't you pick those who are doing those things and allow those who want to protest to continue their protest? Because any attempt to stop people, that's what provokes protesters, and it has happened many times.
So is there a possibility that there could be alternative means of actually venting or letting the government know this is actually how we feel,
yes,
actually hitting the streets?
That alternative was denied. It's the elections. It was denied. We saw the elections. People came out. Never in the history of Nigeria have we recorded this kind of commitment from Nigerians to vote. We have videos. They were all online. We saw it. How security agencies were used to steal the people's ventilation. How the people came out with their full chest, as we say in Nigerian pidgin, to cast their vote for whoever they feel should be, and then to nail the coffin. The judiciary did more with technicalities than evidence. Oh, the case was submitted by 1 p.m. It should have been submitted by 2. Oh, this evidence should have been reserved for the upper and the lower court. And all those legal jargons that is very annoying. So when people don't have a choice, you try to vote, the votes were stolen. We saw people being beaten. We saw ballot boxes snatched. And we saw kinds of violence take place in the course of the election. We saw physical people being bribed to declare the wrong results, and nothing, absolutely nothing. So that was people protesting, yet they are protesting. Let me tell you the last election. Something unique happened that a lot of Nigerians used to observe. This is the first president with the lowest vote since 1999. 8 million. In spite of all what we call rigging, 8 million. President Muhammadu Buhari, as bad as voter turnout was 15 million. Go back, President Jonathan, 22 million. Check President Yar'Adua's election result and check Olusegun Obasanjo's result. This is the first time 8 million Nigerians out of 200 and something are electing the president. And you think that is normal? Even if he's the winner, you think that is normal? That was people protesting.
All right, talking about the protests now, this is another thing I'm looking at, because something I find out about Nigerians, we're quick to hold the federal government accountable. We're always, hey, the president, his administration. And these people from, I read out where the protest happened, different states, and these are people protesting from their states. They have a state government, they have a local government chairman, and they rarely take those people or hold them to account as much as they would want to hold the federal government to account. How come?
That takes us to the final point I wanted to make, which has to do with the irresponsibility of the citizenry. You know, I just told you that just 8 million people elected our president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, which means you ask yourself, we had over 93 million registered voters. If you add Peter Obi's vote and Atiku's vote, Kwankwaso's vote, it was all below 20 million. So where were the people who registered? Did they all die? How can you have over nearly 100,000 registered voters and the 3 or 4 top presidential candidates scored barely 20 million? That's food for thought. Now, why they don't hold the local government chairman and state governors available is lack of information. They don't have the right information.
So what's the right information?
The right information is this. First things first. Do you know how many Nigerians, including me and you now that are seated here, knows how our local government last week?
The allocation,
yes,
you mean?
Yes. How many of us could bother check the physical allocation mobilization agency's government's website to know how much my local government? I'm from Bende, local government in Abia State. I don't know. Except I want to know now, I can just because I have a smartphone. I could just check and see that, okay, Ben, the local government, with all the erosion issues we have, at least received well over 250 million just last week. But you see, we have an evil, which is the evil marriage of the state governor and the local government chairman, who are the stooges. They call something joint accounts. So the state allocation and the local government allocation are paid into one account. And then the governor decides what he wants to help the local government with. Half of what the governors do in the local government that they are calling road, the job for local government chairman. But you see, our politicians are so greedy that the governor knows that if I allow the governor of Ikwere local government,
that's the chairman.
The chairman, sorry. He's also the mayor, the governor, whatever. But for purpose of communication, the chairman, to construct a road worth 1 billion. The chairman, because of corruption, this is just it's not a vague.
It's an assumption.
Yes, an assumption. The chairman has a project of 1 billion. Who says he that water shall be water? That's what the Bible says. So after spending like 800 million on the road construction, he pocketed 200 million. With 200 million, that chairman can challenge the governor in the next election, can decide how Ikwere local government will vote, or Obiakpo local government. So because the governor doesn't want that, it ensures that the governor only pays salaries of his secretarial staff, so that he doesn't have any balance left to mobilize boys against him in his own election. So people don't know these things. They don't know how their monies are spent. We don't even know what the job of the local government is. Most of us don't even know what is in the concurrent and the legislative list. We don't know which one is in the residual list. We don't even know that the covert that NDDC is in its local government. Those are local government issues. Dog license, motorbike license, bicycle license, and all of those things. We only go to local government when we need a local government certificate. That's the only thing that takes us to our local government. So, but the local government by constitution does a lot. But because we don't have those information, we can't demand for accountability. When last did you see a councillor?
Yeah, that reminds me. There are people called councillors.
Yes, whether elected or appointed.
Doesn't matter.
Yes.
That office exists. So, but since you're talking about, you've talked about the fact that people are not well informed.
Yes.
Ignorance is rife.
Yes.
Who should be informing people about the job of their local government chairman?
The first culprit is the media. Yes, the media. The media need to create content for local consumption.
All right.
Most radio stations, television stations are so elitist. We need more community radios.
All right.
To educate the people in local dialects, create programs in local dialects, so that the people, when you have eaten that you call into Nigerian Info. Do you know what it costs? Sometimes you call this radio station, the call screener keeps you waiting like 4 minutes. If you don't
get up to 4 minutes.
I've been there before. I've tried to. I know what I'm talking about. So basically, it's people, Nigerian Info, Cool FM, Wazobia, they're high up there. But we need more radio stations at the local level with shorter frequencies. It doesn't have to be statewide. It doesn't have to be region-wide. So Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation, from the side of the government, should issue smaller licenses. More affordable licenses, not the huge license that costs millions to either get or renew. At least today we are having universities, mass communication department having their own radio stations where students can do hands-on practice. More of those stations virtually in every ward.
Oh wow.
So programs or government policies can be prepared and easily digested by the people at the local levels, because radio will go further than internet. You and I know that.
Yeah, definitely.
As we speak right now, I can tell you authoritatively that over 1 million people are listening to us.
Definitely.
Across board. So, but if you put that on any of the social media platform, only those who can afford data. No, only those who can afford data. But it will shock you how many people don't have even smartphones, let alone seeing your Facebook or X post or whatever post you're doing. So, media has a lot of roles to play in that. Number two, the religious organizations to stop spiritualizing problems.
What do you mean by that? Okay,
so today, you get to the average Nigerian church. You are dissatisfied with the way the government is going. You're angry. Everything is going south. You want to really vet. And then you step into midweek service. Guess what you hear?
What?
God will do it. By this time tomorrow, if I be a man of God. And then the little change you have, you drop it. And then you go back and nothing happened. And then you come back and say, oh, you didn't miss it, faith. If you had missed that your seed with faith, believe me, your miracle will come tomorrow. And then you miss it with faith, and then you drop again. And then you are hoping, and then they quote scriptures like Abraham, hope against hope, that Sarah was going to have a child. And all of these things make you docile. It suspends your brain.
So what do you suggest they do then?
Think. When you are sober, think. It's not to go and drink. Thank God the price of alcohol have gone up, which is good news for me. So you people, I know there are cheaper versions. People have
the
these
ones
sachets.
they banned as well.
They banned truly? They are not truly banned. They are everywhere. How do you ban something that is sold publicly in motor parks? At every junction in Port Harcourt, they are in different names. You don't need to mention them. So people are taking alcohol to forget their sorrows. The same thing the church is doing, that's what alcohol is doing. So nobody's thinking straight. If we sit back and say, look, guys, we have issues in this local government. We have insecurity. How do we ensure that we and the headers cohabit? Because whether you like it or not, we need each other.
Yeah.
I can't eat rice without meat. This guy has the meat, I have the rice. How do we ensure that he's grazing here and I'm grazing here without religious suspicion? You remember when they brought Ruga and all of those things? Those things did not happen because we mixed it with religious and tribal sentiment. Oh, if we give them this land, they are going to take our country. But nobody is saying, looking at the economic aspect of that, to say that the more cows we have here, the cheaper milk we are going to get. These are advantages that we threw away with. Oh, they are going to take our land. How long are you going to own land, by the way? Max 100 years. If you're alive, you'll be useless. Land will become useless to you. So everybody needs to sit down and think out a solution. Yes, elections might be hopeless in Nigeria right now. Renew the hope. They told us renew hope. We can renew the hope because once you stop hoping, you start dying. So you can't afford to be hopeless. And all these religious activities and what do you call it, taking of alcohol to forget your problem, they are signs of hopelessness. So Nigerians need to sit back and begin to think out solutions, because most countries became stronger after terrible economic depression, and I'm glad we are almost there. I'm sure when we get to the bottom and there's nowhere to go again, we'll rise again. Believe me, Nigeria will rise again.
I like that part. Well, let's get to the phone lines now. Thank you very much, Mr. Ijioma. Well, back to the question I'm asking you. How does protesting help the situation? We're discussing the over economic hardship. How do you think protesting is helping or can help the current situation in Nigeria? The numbers to call are 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0002, or 0817-923-0003, and 0817-923-0007. I'm taking messages on WhatsApp as well, so send them via 0809-030-6416. And you can also get on Facebook and leave comments there. Well, Amos on WhatsApp says the economy is interconnected, so a particular policy of the government affects everything. The federal government is in charge of monetary and fiscal policies. It's those policies that are making us pass through the hardship. So, Madam Constance, it's the federal government that is making us pass through this. It's the federal government that announced removal of subsidy is making us pass through this. That's why we are complaining about the federal government. Amos. I am Braid. Welcome.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening to the beautiful guests in the studio.
Interesting.
Good evening, sir.
Yes. The truth is that protests help a lot. Protests inform the government or whoever that is concerned. If you are a student, you are into a student union. When there are some things that is going on that the students don't like, and they meet the management, and the management does not show much interest. But when they are in the area of protest, it calls attention, and also the government immediately intervenes.
All right.
So in a situation of Nigeria, during the election, already the protests are started. You look how many votes the president used to rule us. It's a very big protest.
Okay, Braid.
People never heard it. And now people are protesting. Almost so many states are starting protest. I think it is high time the government speaks up.
All right, thank you. Hello, Muriel from Okrika.
Hi.
Good evening, good afternoon. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Look, Constance, we have a country that nothing is helping our naira. Tourism is not helping us. We don't do international trade. We practically eat everything. We practically import everything we eat. And the things we manage to grow in our state, we don't know how to control it. People just fix prices according to their conscience and according to how they feel. Persons like Dangote and colleagues that produces cement and everything they use in production is cutting in Nigeria.
All right. Thank you very much, Muriel. Apologies, though. We have a commercial take. After the commercial break, we'll wrap up. Just stay tuned.
Yes, natural quality cornflakes are full of nourishing goodness because they are whole